and gentlemen, the streets of Bengal witnessed unprecedented chaos and clashes today. The roads leading to power corridors in Nabanna were engulfed with fire, smoke and dangal. Nabanna, incidentally, is the secretariat that houses the Bengal government. BJP's Nabanna Chlo Abhiyan march with the war cry of dislodging the corrupt government of Bengal was met with police brutality. With batons, tear gas shells and water cannons, the state police tried to stop thousands of BJP workers marching towards the secretariat. The situation quickly escalated after police vehicle was set on fire. At that point in time, all hell broke loose with cops going after the protesters with everything they had at their disposal. Even women protesters were not spared. In the clashes, even policemen sustained injuries. Many of the protesters were brutalized, dragged and arrested. A total of 90 people have been arrested, out of which 22 are women. The crackdown by state machinery has shocked one and all. But why the BJP is up against arms against Didi's government? Well, the reason is simple. The recent cash haul from people directly or indirectly linked to Trinamool Congress has raised their hackles. Over 17 crores were recovered from a promoter of a Kolkata-based mobile gaming app company. Farhad Hakim called it an attempt by the ED to demotivate businessmen by conducting raids. Cash and gold worth over rupees 55 crore has been seized from the safe houses of Partha Chatterjee and his associates. The mountain of cash was recovered, was unprecedented. Mamta's trusted General Anubrata Mondal is in CBI net for getting cut money for cattle smuggling rackets. Another TMC leader Raju Sahni is in CBI custody after rupees 80 lakh cash was found from his property. But the brutality unleashed by the government against this anti-corruption rally has made the BJP link Bengal to North Korea. Listen in to Shubhendu Adhikari.
অ্যারেস্ট করুন আপনার মাকে জিজ্ঞেস করুন, ওই মেদিনীপুরে আছে কিম, লেডি কিম, জিজ্ঞেস করুন ফোন করে। লিডার অফ অপোজিশন, মেম্বার অফ পার্লামেন্ট,
পাঁচিল লাগিয়ে কিছু হবে না, মানুষের মনের পাঁচিল হয়ে গেছে।
सिक्योरिटी कमीशन का मेंबर को रोक रहा है, बंगाल को नॉर्थ कोरिया बना दिया ना।
This is the kind of situation no one can imagine in any part of India, because the police is throwing the bomb on the BJP supporters. It is really unique feature of the West Bengal police. Police tried to stop us, that's why our mob got violent. Otherwise, it was a peaceful demonstration.
They were using water cannon, they were using those tear gas, and these TMC people over there wearing the uniform of police. These are TMC cadres. They were throwing stones from the ceiling, from the terrace, because very purposefully Madam Banerjee and her police is trying to put the blame on us and our workers.
They want to show they will not permit any democratic dissent in this state, and this is part of that endeavor of theirs.
ভয় পেয়েছে আমাদের মিশন সাকসেসফুল, নবান্ন অভিযান সাকসেসফুল হয়েছে, আমাদের নবান্ন অভিযান সাকসেসফুল হয়েছে।
But the Trinamool Congress has pinned the blame on the BJP instead. Listen in to the Trinamool Congress's charge.
उनका रैली में आदमी नहीं हो रहा है, उसको ये मालूम है कि ये पुराने वाला प्रोग्राम भी सुपर फ्लॉप होने वाला है, क्योंकि वो लोग आपस में लड़ रहा है। उसको खुद नहीं मालूम कि ये जो रैली, ये शुभेंदु बाबू का रैली है कि सुकांत मजुमदार का रैली है कि दिलीप घोष का रैली है कि तथागत राय का रैली है। इसलिए वो सरफेस में रहने के लिए ये सब बोल रहा है। तृणमूल कांग्रेस को अभी ये ज़रूरत नहीं है कि बीजेपी का रैली पे हमला करे, क्योंकि वो अपने आप ख़त्म होने जाने वाला एक पार्टी है। तृणमूल कांग्रेस को इससे कुछ लेना देना नहीं है।
The same Trinamool Congress which has often raised no democracy under NDA pitch is today crushing dissent in its own backyard. The same Didi that says that BJP is destroying India's democracy has today unleashed the state to stifle the voice of opposition. That's the charge, and that brings me to the legitimate question on the Newshour tonight. No space for dissent, but dar, dhamki, danda in Didi's land? That's the question and that's the debate. Loktantra pe lathi, that's the hashtag and the debate on the other side.
You're watching
Joining me tonight on the debate, Shatarupa, national spokesperson of the Bengal BJP, Suhail Seth, author and columnist, Riju Datta, national spokesperson of the Trinamool Congress, Dr. Sumant C. Raman, political analyst. But my first question goes to Ms. Smita Prakash, editor of the ANI. And Smita, as a senior editor, I want to ask you, what's your impression of what transpired in Bengal today? Was this a protest that was rowdy, where the BJP, as alleged by the Trinamool Congress, had unleashed its goons? Or was this, as BJP leaders said, policemen, in cadres of the Trinamool Congress in police uniform pelting stones at protesting leaders? What exactly was this that we saw in Kolkata today?
Well, Navika, if you believe in in an afterlife, then today imagine the former Chief Minister of Bengal, the late Buddhadev Das Gupta, sitting somewhere in the universe, smiling sardonically at what Mamata Banerjee's government today did, which was crushing an opposition rally. I mean, the BJP says that the route and the rally, everything was scheduled, and the TMC and the party, the government and the party says that it was vandalism and hooliganism by the BJP. Now, this is, this was supposed to be a grand finale for the BJP of this massive exercise involving more than 4 lakh Karyakartas. But it was not to be because of the assault that they faced from the state police. Now, excuse me for being brutally blunt, but Bengal politics has that aspect of this vicious violence which we have seen as reporters. It is endemic to this state. In many states, the violence is pre-poll or post-poll violence, or it's communal or casteist violence. But in Bengal, it's this all-pervasive violence, and it is political violence. I mean, if you ask where are the highest number of political murders, in which state? It's in Bengal. It's even more than in Kerala. The communists when the communists were ruling till 2011, it was the TMC which promised that a new way of doing things, a new way of politics. But what we are seeing is the same thing, this brutish violence. I mean, TMC is a party which was born out of the Singur agitation. They have a Martyrs' Day protest of 1992. But now what you're seeing is that no room for any kind of political opposition. It is to maintain this vice-like grip on everything, on resources within the state, on local governing bodies, on anything. The fear the TMC has is that the BJP, which ought to have, in their opinion, retreated from politics post-2021 state polls defeat, that's not happened, because the party has begun in right earnest. In spite of the disappointment that it has faced subsequently, even after 2021, it has begun its political campaign for 2024, and the TMC doesn't want the party to gain ground at all. It's an uphill task for the BJP, no doubt. We have seen today how it's going to be till 2024.
So it's the fear of 2024 and what's at stake in 2024. And Suhail Seth, you are a Kolkatan. I want to ask you, has anything ever changed between 2011 and 2022? Or is this violence just what it used to be? No change from the stranglehold of the goons in the West ruled Bengal to the Trinamool Congress ruled Bengal?
Somehow, just for, Smita mentioned Buddhadev Das Gupta, it's actually Buddhadev Bhattacharya. Buddhadev Das Gupta is still alive, and he's a very noted literature. So that's number one. Number two, I know Smita never gets it wrong. Those who point these things out are very unkind, but forgive me. I didn't want the TMC people to jump in and attack my good friend Smita. Now let's get on to Bengal. The irony of Bengal, Navika, is it's the land of Tagore. It's the land of Sri Aurobindo. It's the land of Vivekanand. We have seen this violence now for the last almost 30 years. Mamata Banerjee was brutally assaulted by the then Communist Party goons or cadres or whoever they are. She returned the favor post-poll last year. She's now returning the favor again. A. B. Remember another beautiful thing about Bengal politics, and I'll say this to you, I know Shadrupa is also there. They are fantastic actors. So even if there is a kharash, they will pretend as if their entire limb has been taken away. So don't believe everything that you see when people say, oh my God, I've really been hurt. It's all great acting. I mean, each one of them will beat the hell out of Uttam Kumar and Utpal Dutt if you give them a chance. But what is reprehensible is, on the one hand, Mamata Banerjee calls Mr. Modi names and says that he is, cutting down protest stations and he's being ruling with an iron fist. And you're seeing this level of violence.
She calls him Hitler. I mean...
But, I wouldn't want to use words like Hitler and all.
She's used them. You're only quoting her.
I know, but I wouldn't want to use it because it means a lot more, and it's a very sad part of global history. But I think the point that you've raised needs some reflection. A, do we want our democracy to be riddled with protests that turn violent? B, is there going to be no inquiry into police excesses or police brutality? C, is there a mechanism by way of which in future we can control the violence that is then unleashed? Because see, when whales fight, shrimps are eaten. It's an old Bernard Shaw saying. And today what happens is the common man or woman in Bengal suffers. People don't go out of their homes. I mean, you should see the kind of violence. Navika, even your cameras can't do justice to the kind of violence that is often unleashed by these unchecked, unfettered cadres or goons that are hired for the day. I totally believe, and Riju Datta must carry the message to Madam, who, according to people in the BJP, is in Midnapur today. You must carry a message that Kala Hobe cannot be a call to arms. It cannot be saying, okay, let's have fun. Because the fun is no longer fun when people get hurt, when people are brutally attacked. That has to stop. I think what the BJP did today was they scored a brownie point. They have shown that this violence was unchecked, that the police was involved in the violence. Having said that, Navika, today the West Bengal police is actually led by one of the finest police officers in the country, Manoj Malviya. So I don't believe that it is everyone, but then, there are more people who are ready to please the king than the king himself. So you never know what happens. And I really believe it's a dark day for Bengal, and it's a dark day for Bengalis.
They couldn't see anything wrong, and the High Court of Kolkata last year, in 2021, in the post-poll violence case, had to pull up the DGP of the state, saying that you haven't registered cases. You haven't registered 29 cases of sexual assault as it turned out to be, and 56 odd other cases where people had been assaulted. That was what the Kolkata High Court had to say, and subsequently the investigations of the post-poll violence were handed over to the CBI. Riju Datta, my question to you is, you want the right to democratically protest, and you did that inside the parliament despite parliament rules existing that you can't do dharnas inside the parliament. You sat under the Gandhi statue and you did your dharna. Today, you lathi charged the same dharna and protest that was brought out by the BJP. I want to understand who's the real Hitler and who's the one who's destroying democracy in India.
Okay, thank you, Navika. Now, first of all, I'm going to start off by giving a couple of pointers to Smita ji. I've got utmost respect for her, but Smita ji, the state with the highest number of political murders is Tripura, not West Bengal, number one. And number two, this is a video by ANI, your correspondent has posted, where it is said that the BJP, where it was shown that BJP vandals are setting the police car ablaze. So that's number two. The main point here is, what we have seen today in Bengal is the BJP hooligans unleash hell, create ruckus. They are a bunch of stone pelters and hate mongers who have resorted, in the name of Danda, who resorted to damage government and public properties. And if you damage government and public properties, police will take action and police will lathi charge you and police will put you in behind bars, because that is the job they are supposed to do. And last but not the least, in Bengal, we have seen leader of opposition as Mamata Banerjee, for whom from her head to her toe was beaten up and broken and shattered by CPM. And today we saw another leader of opposition who said, "Don't touch my body," got up in a police car, sat in the police headquarters and did nothing, absolutely nothing, and ran away like a coward. So the bottom line here is very simple. You can protest, which you did for 3 days. You spent 12 crores for this rally. Nothing happened. But if you resort to violence, if you resort to stone pelting, if you resort to destruction of public property, then police will take action. Thank you, Bengal police, for taking action. Thank you, people of Bengal, for rejecting them, for showing they have shown their true colors today, and it's time for India to reject them as well.
Shatrupa, respond to Riju Datta.
I was very patiently listening to Smita ji. Excellent assessment. As usual, Suhail says, very intelligent, very superior intelligence. A lot of it went over my head. I'm not very sure who he wanted to accuse of being Uttam Kumar and Utpal Datta. But Riju Datta has really taken the cake. Riju Datta is probably not aware, that the violence has started 48 hours before our agitation today. We are very, very concerned. We are very, very upset with the fact that the police have been harassing our people to the extent that our people have not been allowed to get into stations to board trains headed to Kolkata. Number one, they have been pulled out of trains with valid tickets, despite the fact that these people had valid tickets. So much so that the RPF had to come and intervene. That why is the West Bengal police getting involved in the vicinity of the railway stations, which is not allowed. And they have not done this in only one station in North Bengal. They've been doing this repeatedly in various districts of Bengal to make sure that many of our Karyakartas do not even reach Kolkata. There was no violence there. Today morning, when our three netas have been there at different railway stations, different points where our Karyakartas met and assembled in Kolkata, explaining that this is an extremely peaceful agitation that has been planned out, very systematic, very disciplined. No amount of agitation, no amount of provocation will be allowed. So there was absolutely no way that provocation was started by BJP. But my very, very elementary question is, repeatedly for the last 1.5 years, including what Riju said today, that West Bengal has rejected a party called BJP, despite the fact that we have gone from 3 to 77, despite the fact that yes, Trinamool has been voted to power for the third time. Trinamool has gone right ahead and betrayed the people of West Bengal by sprouting money underneath the bed, in various rooms, in various properties. Despite that, Trinamool has been, there is a typical saying called Chorer Maar Boro Gola. Trinamool spokespersons, Trinamool panelists, Trinamool speakers have been constantly coming and shouting into our airtime also. I hope they don't do it here under your, under your presence. But the point is, if really Trinamool feels that BJP is a party of non-relevance, BJP is a party which has been wiped out of Bengal and whatever else they keep on saying, then why have the West Bengal police been unleashed in such a violent manner? They should have, if we're such a non-consequential party in West Bengal, then we should have been allowed our peaceful protest.
If the BJP is so inconsequential, then why are you so hassled? Why are your hackles up is the question Shatrupa ji is asking you. I'm coming to you, Suman Siraman. Just a rebut from Riju and then I come to you.
Absolutely, because Smita ji is here, again I will take her relevance. I follow ANI myself, and ANI also posted 2 videos. One where our assistant commissioner for police was cornered and he broke his hand, he was beaten black and blue. And second, the police car put on fire, police kiosk destroyed. So I will give a straightforward answer. The only USP BJP has in Bengal Bengal is its nuisance value, and because of that, it is the police's duty to maintain law order. And I will request from Times Now to the Honorable Chief Minister of Mamata Banerjee to point out these rioters and make sure bulldozers go on their houses.
Well, I want to ask you, Riju Datta, I want to ask you straight, fair and square, why don't you respond to the charges of corruption? Why don't you respond to the issues of money being found in the associates of your ministers? Is that not a relevant question? When is the last time you heard 56 crore being recovered from one single person?
Navika ji, we had this debate, at least with you. I had 10 debates on this topic. The investigative agencies are doing their job. Let the court decide. If you want to
but you don't want those investigation agencies. And may I tell you, Riju Datta, in the recent case where 17.3 crore rupees were found in a businessman's house and business was being discouraged as stated by Firhad Hakim, may I tell you, the police complaint had been filed on the direction of the court. The police could not find anything, but it was the ED that went there and found 17.3 crore. So I want to ask you, and I want to ask Dr. Sumanth Raman, they won't allow the investigation agencies to come in. They won't investigate issues themselves despite complaints from the locals over there of being conned in this so-called gaming scam. And the agency goes there, finds money. They don't have an answer other than saying that business kharab kar rahe ho Kolkata mein. I want to ask you, who's going to fight for the people of Bengal?
Navika, the people of Bengal have made their choice, and they have repeatedly made it by reposing their faith in Mamata Banerjee. 3 quick points that I want to make. First, I am not sure that whether you actually played out those videos that Riju Datta was referring to. And in one, the video where the police vehicle is being attacked, there are very clearly people who, only one person, if I remember, had even bothered to conceal his face. The others are very visible. They are having one of them had a BJP flag. They had saffron scarves. And it is not going to be very difficult for us to find out who these people were at all. And likewise for the videos of the stone pelting and the attack on the police. So the point really is that this has been clearly a violence which has been sort of instigated against the police, and it is the duty of the police to maintain law and order. Now the third point that I want to make is very clear, and I don't think the police have resorted to excessive force in any manner more than what was needed to bring the situation under control. The third point is, if the BJP in Bengal, if the Trinamool in Bengal is accused of being made up of goons, to a large extent that should also apply to the BJP, because most of the BJP cadre in Bengal are ex-Trinamool, whether we are talking of Suvendu Adhikari or Babul Supriyo or a whole host of others.
By that logic, most of the cadre of the Trinamool were ex-left, ex-CPM. That's hardly taking the debate any further. But Sumanth Raman, you said the question of people was answered in 2021, and therefore there is no need for protests anymore. So I said, I want to ask you, if 21 Mamata Banerjee has been elected and declared the chief minister because she has the numbers and nobody has the right to protest, then why do they protest so much against Narendra Modi? After all, he was elected in 2014 and 2019 as well. ये रोज क्यों खड़े हो जाते हैं झंडा लेके कि मोदी ये मोदी वो, this is wrong, that is wrong, and we want a right to protest, and he's become a Hitler, and we have no democracy left, and we are scared of living in India. Why Suhail said? Why? When the matter has been settled at the hustings?
Who said nobody should?
Sumant Raman normally has impeccable logic, but obviously today is not one of those good days for him. To say because Mamata Banerjee won a popular mandate, she should be allowed to run amok is the most perverse argument I've ever heard. A. B. Two wrongs don't make a right. Because the BJP also has goons doesn't mean that you must allow goons to now infiltrate every political dispensation in the country and run amok. Number 3, it is very clear that today what is happening in Bengal is party agnostic. all parties are indulging in violence because they believe that this violence will be the way forward. This is not the case. As far as, and I think Shatarupa said, that if the planning for this was being done in advance, the police has no business to stop people from traveling to the place of protest, which in this case is Calcutta, and then moving to Nabanna, which is on the other side of the river. I think the police perhaps worked more to the tunes of the ruling party, which in this case is the TMC, rather than be objective. It is very clear, Navika, that today Bengal has slid into a cauldron of reckless and brutal violence. That needs to stop. If the police can't stop it, if the administration can't stop it, then the courts need to step in. Because this violence cannot remain unchecked. What is happening is, at the altar of democracy, by talking about democracy and protest, you are telling people that everything is kosher, that you have a free pass to indulge in the kind of violence that we have seen. This cannot happen. You remember in America, when this whole police brutality and police atrocity took place, it took a turn where civil society then went back and said Black Lives Matter because of the police brutality, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying we need to run a movement like that in India, but certainly Bengal needs to have its violent quotient.
Well, Suman Siraman has an objection that I deduced from his comments something that he didn't say. Well, Suman Siraman, well, you said that she was elected and that matter was settled. I only took what comes out of that statement is that why are you protesting now? So why are you complaining so much just because I'm deducing from it? You don't have to say everything. Some things are understood.
No, everyone, no, they are not understood. Everyone has a right to peaceful protest. You do not have a right to throw stones. You do not have a right to break police vehicles.
But the allegation is that the stones were thrown by cadres of the Trinamool Congress dressed up as policemen. That is a soundbite I play.
Right now, Navika, can I show you the video? I'm not sure how visible
all
it
right,
will be.
Riju Datta is also showing the video. While you take out yours, Riju Datta, what's your question to Smita?
How is it got a parallel broadcast going on?
You know, yeah, you are showing a video.
It's not a parallel broadcast, madam.
How can we have a parallel broadcast going on in your channel?
Yes, because the
how do you have a parallel broadcast going on? Are you time bound to?
Media needs to grow up as fine. If you selectively choose videos, then you can ask.
Do you go on two channels simultaneously? How are you doing a parallel broadcast? Firstly, Navika, I just need to say this, that he loosely everybody is using the term Hitler. He is a Goebbelian narrative out here. I quoted the NCRB and their Bengal is right on top. Tripura, as far as the northeast states, it's right on top. Now the video of violence that he's talking about, yes, there was violence on both sides, and a channel or a news organization doesn't certify who was doing the violence, that person is right and who wasn't. We show the violence just like you do, every other channel does. This is ridiculous that he has a parallel broadcast going on the channel while you are not the editor, Riju, to decide what goes on Times Now. How can you run this? Just because nobody is stopping you, nobody has, people are being courteous doesn't mean you run a parallel broadcast.
The national media needs to grow a spine, madam.
Oh yes, so that you can file some more FIRs, Mr. Riju Datta. On the last count, there were 12 FIRs against me. Who has a spine and who's crushing the spine, Mr. Riju Datta?
No, but 1 minute.
Let's
Smita,
not try to teach the media. The media knows its job. The media knows its job. We are not a certification authority. We have shown visuals, every visual, uncut, as it came on the channel, on ANI or on Times Now. But the fact of the matter is, there is violence, Mr. Riju Datta. Why is there so much violence in Bengal? Why don't you answer that question? You said you were not responsible for the violence after the post-poll situation. You are saying you are not responsible for the violence today.
With a video.
What are you responsible for, Mr. Riju Datta? What is the Trinamool Congress responsible for?
the Trinamool Congress is responsible for maintaining peace and harmony in the state of West Bengal because they have voted us. So if a bunch of hooligans starts throwing stones and destroying government and
the
public
opposition
property,
is full of hooligans. Shatrupa, bunch of hooligans is all that you had, and that is what is upsetting. And the Trinamool Congress says it has the right to discipline this bunch of hooligans. Respond to Mr. Riju Datta.
That's very unfair.
There's really no response because they are a self-righteous party who have a track record of hooliganism. They are the ones who, while in the opposition, if you remember, Navika, they went and broke furniture in the Legislative Assembly, in the Vidhan Sabha. So they now want to sit in judgment on us. Okay, I accept, maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's still too early to judge. But if there are people in our processions who got carried away and did all this, we are under no circumstances justifying any of this. If at all there is to be an inquiry, there should be a very, very fair inquiry. Riju, I gave you a patient hearing. You are again displaying your basic character of intolerance.
I am giving you a compliment for Christ's sake.
I don't want any compliments from you. Thank you very much. Please let me talk.
I said thank you for having a backbone.
Please let me talk.
Are you an orthopedic surgeon looking for backbones in everybody? For God's sake, allow her to complete a sentence.
So my point, Navika, is that if there are such people who got carried away and did all this, from our party, if we find out that these people are from our party, we will take very, very serious action, and there will be punishment. There will be. They've been there. We've done this before. We will do this again. Having said that, my point is, again, at the sake of repetition, I'm saying this. If we are in the state, now who's talking?
Sumansi Raman, instead of being obsessed with that video, would you want to compliment Shatrupa, who has graciously accepted that if there were anybody resorting to violence in their party, in their protest, action will be taken against them? Would you be gracious enough to compliment, because you don't hear this from political parties very often? So just keep your cell phone with the video down, investigate the matter, and if it is a BJP Karyakarta, then action will be taken against him, Riju Datta. Meanwhile, be gracious enough to hear what Shatrupa ji has to say. 1 minute. Shatrupa.
Thank you. So, Navika, once again, my point is, if I completely understand that now Nabanna is the seat of power. Nabanna is under 144, like Writers Building also was. We also did not think that we would go right up to Nabanna and knock on her door. We were doing a political agitation, a very peaceful agitation. We should have been stopped in a circumference which is near Nabanna. But police have started raiding our netas, our Karyakartas' houses. At the sake of repetition, again I'm saying, they have been at us for almost 48 hours before the agitation. Under any circumstances, you tell me, we have a senior person like you.
Is that democracy?
We have a mature person like
democracy, Riju Datta? Respond to Shatrupa.
We have the fundamental right, all Indians have this fundamental right to travel all over India. Under what stretch of imagination have our Karyakartas been stopped to travel?
Can I answer now, Shatrupati? Thank you very much. First of all, an honest compliment. You are probably the honest spokesperson of BJP, and thank you for saying what you have said. Yes, the Nabanna secretariat is section 144. Yes, Howrah police denied permission. Still BJP created this ruckus. Now, coming to Shatrupati's question, why were they stopped? And I have said it on other channels, and I'm saying it on record. 48 hours, no proof whatsoever. But the Karyakartas were dragged from the trains and they were arrested. Why? Because they had sleeper class tickets. They went into AC compartments with people with valid tickets and they created a ruckus in the train, and that is why they were arrested. I am saying it on record, but with of that 48 hours Jumla, there is no record BJP has whatsoever, because 24 hours ago,
Suhail said at least one admission coming in that some people were arrested. Karyakartas who were headed to Kolkata were arrested by by the orders of the Trinamool Congress. So, Suhail said, where does that leave democratic protest in Bengal?
1 minute. Don't be under any misconception that Mamata Banerjee is a dove. She's not a dove. She's a fighter. She has emerged from the same cesspool of violent politics of which she was a victim. So she's not a nice, very, docile human being who's going to allow this to happen. So please don't be under any misconception. Everything that has happened in Bengal today has happened with her knowledge and perhaps with her consent. I don't know about individual people getting beaten up or not because even she doesn't have the time. Number one. Number two, I don't know if Riju was born then because he's a young boy. There was a very, very brave Deputy Commissioner of Police under the communist regime who was lured into Khidarpur and brutally murdered a gentleman called Mr. V.K. Mehta. That's the history of violence. My appeal to Mamata Banerjee is, you talk about Ma Mati Manush, a Ma doesn't want to see any child killed. A Ma is protective. That's what Durga Ma is all about. That's what our pujos are all about. So I'm saying, make Bengal turn a new leaf. Today, Mamata Banerjee can make it happen.
My basic question tonight, Smita Prakash, is just this. Khela hobe for 2024. Does that justify the scenes that we are seeing today? Just because there is power play, just because the bugle for 2024 has been sounded, and just because they believe in Khela hobe.
Yes, Navika, there is a structural problem in the politics of Bengal. While I'm not from Bengal and Suhail and Riju and Chatrapa are part of Bengal, they obviously know the state better. But we sitting outside can get this outsider's perspective, and that there is, nobody expects Mamata to be nice and docile. You don't win term after term as a chief minister by being a nice and docile person. That's not expected out of her, and especially not in a large state like Bengal. Sure, rule with an iron hand, but rule with don't be the person that you fought against. Don't become that person. For heaven's sake, you are the one who was a victim of that violence, that political violence. Everybody in the state expected more out of you. At least we sitting outside expected more out of you. So, where everybody might turn around and say that this was a police matter. I'm sorry, but we are all feeling disappointed that this is not what we expect politics of West Bengal to descend into. More of the bad old past.
Absolutely, and those visuals on your screen, ladies and gentlemen, are when Mamata Banerjee was at the receiving end. And those visuals of where she was beaten up and literally her skull opening there in the violence of the year. Is this what she wants to be repeated in Bengal? And the question is not about whether protesters should be stopped on their way to their secretariat. Of course they must. But there is a way, there has to be a circumference, and there is a manner in which these protesters have to be stopped. And above all, the question is, you had no answers for the violence after the polls last year. Do you think there is going to be anybody who's going to believe that you have no control today either? And what about those mounds of bundles of notes that have been found in close contact with people close to Mamata Banerjee, part of her ecosystem? Doesn't the public deserve to have an answer on that corruption? That's the question we are asking. Thank you very much to my panelists for joining me on debate number 1.